Earth debate live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe. Hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Ko-Fi, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and X. Now we are joined by Neil, Refracted Curvature, Brian's Logic, and a whole bunch of people in the Flat Earth Debate Discord server. So welcome one and all.
Hello.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
Good morning. Good to have you all. Any evidence you can have gas pressure without a container?
What would you accept as evidence?
A demonstration of gas not pressing on something but maintaining pressure, as absurd as that sounds.
Well, I wouldn't accept anything as evidence. It can't happen.
Get lost then. What are you doing here?
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. I wouldn't accept anything as evidence because it can't happen. It's not possible.
No,
so I'm not even going to go into the realms of what might happen or someone could present. No, they can't.
Yeah, what if you could violate a principle of gas? What if I could? You're not going to. It's an antecedent consequent relationship. That is, to have pressure, you've got to press on something. If you don't, you're just expanding into whatever volume you've got until you do. Well, pressure is, by definition, the force exerted on the walls of the container. That's a NASA definition of gas pressure. So, yeah, appealing to people's ideas of defying this principle is silly. I completely agree. And the way I had to phrase it was also silly. Give me gas pressure not pressing on something. It's just silly. But that is also the heliocentric world. You've literally got gas in a sphere shape, not expanding into a sky vacuum. Defying the second law of thermodynamics, entropic dispersion in this instance. That's not a reality we can exist in. The reason I bring it up is because yesterday we covered the Locust Eaters podcast on whether or not the moon landing was fake, and for the most part they just appealed to the feast of nonsense garbage that leaves you in the idea that you have a sky vacuum. However, in my opinion, the reason they're discussing it is because it is very prevalent in mainstream media currently that it's to be mocked. The moon landings are to be considered a joke, or you're being softened up at the very least to accepting the idea that what they punted as being the moon landings aren't as you are led to believe. So yesterday we covered it from the perspective of somebody discussing it in their, logical analysis of whether or not it may or may not be true on a balance of probability. But today we're going to have a bit more fun, so we're actually going to look at something that's come from the mainstream we were discussing, and this got brought up a couple of days ago because my wife watched it. So there's a movie called Unfrosted, and the movie's got a little trimmed out clip that's been courtesy of Mighty Mush. Thank you very much indeed. I'm going to only play it a few seconds at a time for obvious reasons, but once we've got the clip out of the way, with lots of interjection so I don't get a copyright strike, definitely commenting on it, we're going to discuss it for the show because it sort of is a launching point for a discussion about various different media outlets and how they're portraying the moon landing currently. And, ice walls and all, maybe we'll get to that in this, but let's get a bit of the clip and hopefully it'll generate a bit of discussion. We'll see. As I say, we have discussed this before.
You don't really think you're actually going to the moon, do you? Really? Going to the moon?
Yeah, the guy in character is associated with Kellogg's, so what they're looking for is to invent Pop-Tarts. And what she's there for from NASA is as a consultant, and she's hired other consultants from various other places, including a character described like Werner von Braun.
No, I don't.
No. Let's go.
Yeah, that's good enough. Then she drives off in a moonlander, which Mr. Collox power slided into the set, which also had a fake moon landing going on in it. And there's been lots of that. In the last 10 years, I must have seen at least 20 references where they do things like this, where they've got sets with moon landing stuff. It doesn't matter if it's music videos, TV shows, mainstream movies. There's loads of people mocking the moon. In fact, they have been doing it since the 70s with things like James Bond, but you know, it's been ramping up more and more and more ever since. It's far less subtle these days. Anyway, that was the clip. That's from a movie called Frosted, which is currently on Netflix. Like I say, I happened to watch it because my wife stuck it on. It was the front page movie of Netflix when you first turn it on. So I'm assuming there's going to be a reasonable amount of people, at least in the British audience, that have turned on their Netflix in the last week and gone, oh, I'll just watch that. It's the first thing offered. And it's got that funny fat girl in it. So, yeah, I'm hoping a few people in the audience, or at least in the panel, have watched this. Other than you, obviously Mighty Mush has watched it. Anybody else caught this Unfrosted movie about Kellogg's?
Well, what's the purpose of it? Why are we watching it?
Because they're mocking the moon landing. So part of the plot is that you've got a whole load of NASA consultants coming to Kellogg's assistance with all the expertise of NASA, where they're pureeing food to help men go to space and that sort of thing. The reason we're discussing it is because there's a certain level of relinquishment of this narrative in the mainstream media. This is an example of it. Now, I will at some point segue us onto the fact that the Werner von Braun character is very much discussing the fact that he's not actually associated with space and he's going to Argentina, and there's just certain aspects of it that are very much alluding to the space hoax with some of the characters that are in it. Is that answering your question, Brian?
Well, it's also a comedy, is it not?
Say again.
I was just asking, this is a comedy, correct?
Yes.
Well, then it's reinforcing the brainwashing, because only somebody who's a comedian or a joke would say something like that. It's reinforcing the brainwashing. It's not making fun of the moon landing. It's making fun of people who claim the moon landing didn't happen.
I realise that at a level that they want to portray in the narrative of comedy. However, at a very surface level, without reading between any lines or looking for subcontext, she's just mocking the moon landings. And she's directly asked if she thinks they're going to happen as a NASA employee, and her answer is no in the narrative. You can say it's comedy, we can apologise for it. But as I say, that happens more and more often in recent times. We get more and more examples of similar things.
Well, because that is brainwashing, though. That is a way to reinforce brainwashing within those who have been brainwashed. It's a trigger now for anybody that's watched that, when they hear someone say the earth is flat, for them to immediately shut their brain off and think of you as that fat girl.
So you're saying people who are watching it are normies would associate it as the funny, bubbly ex-NASA employee making Pop-Tarts as the ludicrous idea that they weren't going to get to the moon because I know better, we did. Is that what you're saying? It reinforces?
Well, it reinforces. They know it's a comedy when they're watching it. They're not suspending their disbelief about that. They're laughing.
Okay.
They're turning that person into a joke. It's clever brainwashing, but it's brainwashing.
I have to say, Nathan, that yesterday's when I listened last night to yesterday's show, I was buckled over with laughing because those guys were really, really trying to make it real, and that's what was so good about it. I don't know if a comedy will be as good. You were hilarious. I was trying to get my friend to listen to you. You were so funny. Just not for the content, even just because you were so funny. Because these guys were trying their best with mental hoops, jumping through mental hoops to try and get something to be real, coming up with nonsense reasons why it might be. It just showed, like, I much prefer videos where you have people really actually being serious. Now, I don't know what this is going to be, this comedy thing, but I prefer ones that we review where someone's dead set and serious, trying to make something real when it's not, because that brings out the best in you.
And they were serious.
Well, that's what the example I gave with Katie Holmes or whatever, with that pharmaceutical endeavour to diagnose people on the spot with just one little drop of blood. Well, that was my example. It's like once you get to the point that you understand it's a fraud and the product doesn't really exist, you don't have to go around explaining why she's gone to the effort of doing X, or why she's behaved like Y, or why she's had ABC consultancy. None of it makes any difference to the fact that it's a fraud. Yeah? So if tomorrow the world woke up to the fact that NASA aren't going to a sky vacuum, like everybody appreciated it, yeah, you wouldn't suddenly expect the majority to be saying, well, why did they drop their keys when they're in orbit? There wasn't ever an orbit. They were lying about it. Yeah, but when they were floating around, right? They were still floating around. But why would the keys not be affected by the gravitational field? No, you're not getting it, are you? No. There was no pharmaceutical drug to diagnose you. Yeah? Her saying that it can do it in 30 seconds to that group of 1,000 people and then having dinner and giving a quick demonstration. You know, why did she have the guy come from the audience to do the demonstration? No, she gave it to somebody behind her back. They shuffled off and put it through a whole load of machinery that took through about 2 or 3 attempts to get the correct outcome. And 25 minutes later, with a bit of stalling from her, she gave you the result. It was all just a smoke and mirror show. But if you're still under the misapprehension that there is actually a wonder diagnosis drug from this fraudster that's been prosecuted, then you haven't got your brain wired correctly. So you've got to keep people who are going to come across the endeavour to potentially debunk it with loads of red herrings to chase after. Well, why would she have the consultants? Well, you can ask all those questions when you don't know it's a fraud. When you still believe there is a wonder diagnosis. When you don't know it, it's reasonable to ask those questions to somebody who's claiming to debunk her. When I've seen the demonstrations, there's hundreds of videoed examples where she just takes a drop of blood and gives the diagnosis on the spot. It's processed immediately. It's amazing. You're like, yeah, but it's an edit. It took 20 minutes in reality. Well, yeah, they're running a show. In other words, you get into the apologetics from the person who wants to believe it. The second you know it's a fraud, all bets are off. And that's the position we find ourselves in while we're dealing with a load of jokers that are questioning whether or not the photography from the original moon landing and its quality is stack upable as a debunking when there's better quality footage from number 15 and 16 missions. You're like, oh, God. None of it's real. They're not in a sky vacuum. That's it. Once you know that, that's it. You don't have to question their motivations. They had to fake it on high wire because they weren't in a sky vacuum. I thought yesterday's show was excellent.
28 weeks later was a bigger film than 28 days later because there was more money. And they had, do you know what I mean, improved on the processes. It's such nonsense. But I like responding to people who genuinely do believe stuff when we know it's a complete load of rubbish. I like that.
I don't like that. I know that's where we very much differ.
Because it brings out the best in you. You are the funniest at that point.
Yeah, because I can't stand doing it. I don't want to entertain their nonsense, right? That's probably what you're laughing at, right? My exasperation at their nonsense waffle.
Yeah, it's like when you end up with two options. You end up having to shout at the camera, right? Because they're annoyed. Literally, the video is making you annoyed. Or you turn that annoyance, that anger, into sarcasm. And it comes out as sarcasm. Like, anyone who listened to you in your show yesterday, going through that video, who is a moon believer, they'd have a moon landing believer, they'd have a serious problem not laughing along, and also they'd have a serious problem not becoming embarrassed. That's what they'd have. Because you pull it apart using Narnia and how many 4 quotes. I've seen them go, there must be 30, maybe 44 quotes went through the wardrobe. I mean, it's definitely real. Do you know what I mean? It's like, that's their standard of evidence. You just point out what their standard of evidence is, and they don't realise how low it was. You know?
Yeah, well worth checking out. The majority of the good stuff was in the live show, which is fortunate for members of the public, but yeah, just yesterday's show, which was coincidentally show 2100. But that particular show, I just reviewed it this morning, as in I played it back on double speed and listened to the whole thing, along with the endless protracted silences in the after show because everyone buggered off. But the live show, definitely recommend. It's good. It's already had 1,000 views. So, you know, it tends to be the case that when it is a good show, it does actually get better views, which is good. Not that they're all fantastic shows. Obviously, this is just as good as every other show. But
You should have named it 2100 A Space Odyssey.
why?
Sounds good.
Well, I want the videographer to give me exposure, don't I, Neil? So it was good at one point because who was it that super chatted? If I rack my brains, I'll remember who it was. Somebody who I trust in the moderation team. So super chatted to say, actually, I'm subscribed to this channel. They cover a lot of UK politics and are very good. You might want to actually subscribe to them. It's like, oh, that's good. Because, you know, on the one hand, they're completely outside of our wheelhouse and not in our subject, but they coincidentally covered moon landing, which is a tangent to our subject. And therefore, we've managed to critique them, hopefully in the nicest possible way. But by the sounds of Brian's critique, maybe not. There's a lot of, maybe the sarcasm won't go over, lowest form of wit and all. But either way,
No,
you'd
I
hope
loved
they'd
it.
respond.
I loved it. That's why it had so many views. It was brilliant. It was hilarious. I was laughing. I was driving along and I laughed so much I pulled out over the line in the centre of the road, laughing.
It's like nostalgia because we haven't done that for a while. We don't normally attack it from that angle. So because we have attacked it from that angle for so many years and now are on a different vibe, you can kind of, I'm sure I said it in the show, this is nostalgic, and sort of subverted it onto, all right, we've got to go along for the ride with this stupid nonsense now. So we'll just transpose it into Narnia examples, with, like you say, fur coats for spacesuits and wardrobes for Carmen lines and Turkish delight for moon rocks. You know, we got pallets of moon rocks. Well, yeah, we've got loads of Turkish delights. The White Witch just churns them out and gives them to you. We've brought them all back and tested them. They're just like the ones in Antarctica. It is such a farce when you listen to it, though. The whole story's garbage. When you break down heliocentrism on the proviso that you know space is fake, it is utterly absurd. It's more absurd when you know that you can't actually reify it because the mathematics of it come from measurements of a flat plane. So that kind of busts your bubble. It really does sort of, I was going to say, twist your noodle, because you struggle to then... I struggled at the best of times to watch Hollywood movies that were about space. I struggled to reify it back then. In the last year or so, it's now impossible to, because you know that the measurements that create the model to put things into orbit is flat. So you're like, well, if the measurements are flat, then anything after that, calculation-wise, is nonsensical in terms of an appreciation of how your world physically presents itself, because it doesn't. The measurements to make that claim that you've got orbital motion, sphere, Earth, sky vacuum, relies on you measuring a flat world with gas pressure. It's like, this is so silly. How am I supposed to reify it? I can't even get into the fantasy. I'm so alienated. It's something I studied at Performing Arts School. So a guy who coincidentally used to direct and write a few scripts for Star Trek Next Generation was Stephen Burkoff. And he wrote a book about a process called alienation. Not in the context you might imagine, but in terms of alienating an audience from your narrative and how you want to keep your audience engaged with what you are portraying to them in an imaginary world. And there's a line that you can very easily cross that will push people away from what is essentially the suspension of disbelief. So feel free to read it. I can't remember the name of the title, but Stephen Burkoff's the author. He also appeared in a lot of those episodes. Tall, burly, bold guy. Anyway, Stephen Burkoff aside, I am now totally alienated from the story that we used to, collectively, believe in. Now, the fact that we suspended disbelief in terms of our own physical reality isn't relevant. That's a testament to the quality of brainwashing. But we were, factually, suspending disbelief about our reality. We haven't been to space, we haven't seen the Earth as a globe, we're told it's the case, we accept it as our reality. We are, in effect, suspending disbelief. But we're so little ability to alienate ourselves from that which we are incorporating into our worldview, we can never step outside of it to look back in. Now we, the flat earthers, this panel, have stepped so far outside of that paradigm that, for me personally, I'm too alienated to conceptualize the idea, to argue from within it. That's probably what I find so detestable about what you do, Brian, because it's too alien to comprehend for me now. I can't do it anymore. It's cognitively too difficult.
Yeah, but that's you, Nathan. I'd still say there's probably still 95% of the world that think this is all true.
Yeah, they're
So
inside.
that's
They're not
a joke
looking in.
to me.
Yeah, but they're not looking in. We're all looking in from the outside. So Brian can step inside that paradigm easily, and it doesn't faze him in the slightest. It's admirable, right? It's a failing on my part, is what I'm saying when I say I find it detestable what Brian does. That's a failing on my part, because I am incapable of stepping back into a paradigm that requires you to measure the world as a flat plane to create the paradigm to step into. I can't do that anymore. It's just too difficult to conceptualize, because it violates the principle of the world that actually unfolds before us. The flat world we're measuring.
But that's what I was saying the other day. And you were insisting that, oh no, you better know heliocentrism. Why?
Because then you can step... good question. Excellent question. Let me answer it. Excellent question. Because when you tread the path of understanding heliocentrism and the overcomes for the arguments, and then step into the understanding of why we have a heliocentric model in the first place, that is to say flat earth measurements, you, upon doing so, have the ability to step outside of the paradigm and assess it from the outside. How does this work with the world that presents us? Well, if you have a good understanding of the measurements and a good understanding of what they claim, then you can put the two together to step outside of the paradigm and look in on heliocentrism without actually being on a bull when you do it. You can look at the model and assess it for how it's come to fruition, how the other people who do believe the world is that model have come to reify it into the model that you've got a good understanding of. Those are all cutting edge tools that we have offered here over the last however many years we've been doing the debate. We've sharpened up those tools. Now, it has to be disclaimed to an audience when I say, well, you can relinquish all of that. You don't need any of it if you understand how Earth's measured. That's correct if you're just going to go about your day and get on with your life. But if you're going to turn into some flat earth evangelist, then you better damn well know every single rebuttal to all of their claims, because you'll have them put to you. And if you just know Earth's measured flat and you can't see how an orbital motion that they're claiming is measured when they look at a telescope isn't actually anything more than an elevation angle measurement derivation from a flat earth that you're actually standing on because you know it, into their heliocentric motion as they describe it, because you understand it. You shouldn't be the person entering into debate. You should get on with your life knowing it's measured flat. That's why I say that you need to be on the cutting edge of these debates and understand how heliocentrism works, Neil. Because if you don't, you'll have your ass handed to you right quick by somebody who does understand heliocentrism, even though you fundamentally understand Earth's measured flat. They'll still get over your arguments. They'll undermine your confidence pretty quick too.
I disagree, because you're going to tell me something about that nonsense when I just demonstrated to you that beyond the shadow of a doubt it's flat. You're going to tell me about orbits now and planets and the moon and the stars and the sun and how we're moving. I just demonstrated to you that beyond the shadow of a doubt it's measured flat. We are on a flat Earth.
So you've got to be able to make that connection then. You've got to be able to, like you just did very loosely, make the connection between that measurement, in this case elevation angle of Polaris for latitude, to their claim of a globe. Therefore show them the origins in a flat Earth. But if you don't know how the globe system works for orbits, how are you going to show how those orbits came from flat Earth measurements if you don't understand how the orbits work? You're never going to make the connection. Even if you did just do it, you just blagged it. You heard me do it a few times and went, I've heard him say orbits need a flat Earth. Sod it, I'm just going to roll with it. I'll bluff. You need a flat Earth for those orbits. I'm nearly there, Neil. Bloody hell, I'm nearly there. Bloody hell, Neil, nearly there. Yeah, this is no excuse. I'm still talking. Yeah, so they gave you the orbital motion. You give them back you'll need a flat Earth because you're bluffing, and they say one word. Why? And you go,
No,
I don't know. I heard Nathan say it.
I won't give them orbits. Orbits don't exist any longer. Are you not getting me?
Hang on, you're both off kilter. Go on, John. I'll go after you.
Yeah, Brian wants to undermine absolutely everyone, so if you can get in before, he can undermine you too, John.
I would say, not you. You would not assert orbits. That is what they will assert. If you do not have the understanding of orbits, you're not going to be able to connect it.
Okay, on
But
a
if
flat
you
plane.
know,
Yeah.
right, if you know what you know that any argument against it must be fallacious.
Correct.
But knowing that it is fallacious and not being able to make the connection when you're actually discussing it is a fail. It's strictly speaking a neutral outcome if you can't make that connection for the person there and then. And I would suggest
the
that
same
you
is
shouldn't be
true
in the
for you.
discussion if you didn't know how to do it.
Sorry. Same is true for you, Nathan. Because if someone just says, I know the Earth is measured flat, right? They just go along with that. And someone challenges it. They have to be able to detail the ways that the Earth is measured and how they can actually make the statement that the Earth is measured flat. Because with a statement that we went through already, technically doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But they have to be able to make it make sense. They have to be able to justify it. So no matter what you do, you have to have details.
I understand that to justify it and understand it, you're going to need more of as an audience member than me just saying Earth is measured flat. On screen now, you've got an altitude and azimuth measurement with respect to a flat plane. That's an angle off a flat plane to a star. Okay, there's your flat plane. Horizon detailed as the outside edge of this disk. That's what we're measuring. That's what we're navigating. That's how it works. That's how the globe came to fruition. Now, you'll need all of that information to be understood, which won't just necessarily be the case if you were a newbie in the audience right now. It wouldn't sink in. You'd have to either listen to it a few more times or listen to a few more shows until you did understand it. But after half a dozen shows of various different ways of this being explained with various different diagrams that basically show the same thing, you're going to get it. And you can go away confident that you understand how Earth's measured. Flat. But it doesn't mean that you're going to be able to translate. Oh my God.
No.
It doesn't mean that you're going to be able to translate that into a winning argument against a globe believer who tells you that orbital motions prove we're on a sphere. Haven't you got a telescope? Have you never looked at the sky?
And I just demonstrated Earth is flat.
Just 1 second. No, if you're just bringing up the elevation angle argument to do the celestial body, then you're going to also have to know what dip correction is. You're going to also have to know about the corrections in the almanac and whether they refer to a horizontal plane or to a globe. You're going to have to know all these things. It's not going to be that simple. I know you want it to be simple. It won't be. And that's just one way of measuring.
Yeah, it is. It's just defining an elevation angle.
It won't
Hold
be.
on, let me just let Brian get to the end. Hold on, I know me and John want to disagree. Just let Brian get to the end and then we'll disagree with him.
A horizontal plane.
I didn't hear that because I was trying to clear the airwaves for you.
If you don't know what dip correction is and how that works, how are you going to actually be able to prove or validate that you're measuring a horizontal plane?
Just by defining what an elevation angle is.
Being a horizontal plane, not just measuring a horizontal.
I got it twice now. Okay, I got it twice. Just by defining what an elevation angle is. It is that simple.
Hang on. Right. How is it that simple?
Because an elevation angle requires that you measure a flat plane.
Yeah, but you can make but the problem is that argument is going to go down in flames when someone doesn't know what they're talking about and some baller comes along and says, I just hang a plumb bob.
Yeah, that's my bloody point.
Take a 90
that's
off.
my point.
Hang a plumb bob and take a 90 off that. If you don't know the dip correction part, if you don't know about those elements.
Yeah, Brian, please. I heard it 3 times. Yeah, I completely agree. Their argument, with a third party that's disagreeing, it will fall apart if they don't understand the intricacies of the argument that they shouldn't be having if they've just come here to find out what Earth is. No, go in peace. You know it's measured flat. You've understood some of it. Not fully, but enough after 6, 7, 8 12 shows. You've watched your dozen shows. You know it's measured flat. Don't be that guy that goes out and thinks that you're capable of arguing with it. Because what are you going to do when they start telling you that they're measuring to a refracted horizon and you haven't got a clue what dip correction or angle correction full stop means, or what angle fundamentally means when they're bending the line? If you don't know any of that, you're never going to win the discussion. And as Brian points out, agreeing with me, you're going to have your argument fall apart real quick. This is an address to Neil, because he's saying, oh, no. Once you've got the concept and you know Earth's measured flat, once you've got that concept down, you can overcome anything. No, you can't overcome anything.
I said demonstrated flat. When you did everything that you all just said, that's what I'm talking about. Then they can't come back with anything. Heliocentrism is done. What are you going to tell me about after everything is laid out? Oh, what about the orbits? Oh, what about this? Oh, what about that? On a flat plane. Okay, have fun, my friend.
Yeah, Neil has a point.
Neil's right. Yeah, Neil's right.
Neil has a point. If he goes through the whole process of showing someone how an elevation angle to a celestial body is measured with a marine sextant from a boat, and goes through the dip correction and explains all that to the person, then the person says after that is only nonsense, right? But if you said a few minutes ago, Nathan, well, if you're a listener and you listen to 12 shows, whatever, and you just go, you know it's measured flat. How do you know that? How do you know that?
Just define an elevation angle. Just let me answer him. You just have to define what an elevation angle measurement is to understand it. That's it. It is very simple. If you just want to understand how Earth is flat, just go and look up what an elevation angle measurement is. It requires Earth to be flat, and we absolutely measure them and use them, and it's how the globe came to fruition. Now, you don't need that extra bit to know how an elevation angle measurement's defined and what it requires. It requires Earth to be a flat plane of reference. That's it. You get that from the definition of an elevation angle measurement, though. That's all you need. That's all you need. I could shut up shop tomorrow. I've proven Earth's flat. Go and look up what an elevation angle measurement is. They're definitely used. They're definitely put into practical application. They're definitely the basis of our mapping system. They're definitely the basis of your stupid globe belief. We've won. It's the end. We've won. Wow, how did we win? With defining an elevation angle measurement. That was it. That's all we needed.
I can make an elevation angle to the top of a building 500 meters away. That doesn't mean the whole Earth has a horizontal plane. I'd have to actually understand an elevation angle when it came to celestial navigation, for instance. Just give me a second. Just give me a second. Right?
It's made a false statement. You want to continue on with it?
I didn't make a false statement.
Let him interrupt you then. Let's just hear Brian, please. Oh, come on. We've been going really well till now. Three people talking. Hello, got to be able to control you two. Brian, just let him object. It'll take 20 seconds and then you can jump back in. Rather than having
I'll take them all. I hadn't finished.
Yeah, but he says you've made an incorrect statement. Let's just let him at least try and justify to you why you've made an incorrect statement rather than just rumpusing ensuing.
Right. The initial statement is I could make an elevation angle to something 500 yards away and it could still be a ball. No, that is incorrect because it is not an angle if your baseline is
just rumpusing in Brian.
Because he just said something that's not right. That's what.
It's not an angle if your baseline is curved. So no, you didn't just measure an elevation angle to something 500 yards away if you have a curved baseline. No, you didn't.
If I believe I'm on a globe and something is 500 meters away from me, that's half a kilometer. Right? The amount of curvature between me and the base of that thing is so minute that I can totally be fine with measuring an elevation angle to the top of that. And not worrying about that little bit of curvature that is there.
You just ignored him.
I can get a good enough answer just off of that. My point being is that's not good enough.
You just ignored him.
I just ignored you.
I didn't ignore him.
Yeah,
I didn't ignore him.
It cannot be. No. You're giving apologetics after the fact for how little curve you can ignore.
I'm trying to make a point, but I'm not getting around to making it. And the reason I'm not is because
okay, fine, go ahead.
Because this is a delicate subject with you and John.
Oh, here we go. Ad hom to poison in the well. Go ahead, Brian.
That's what's going on.
I've got to clear the airwaves.
Brian,
Neil, stop. Neil, stop. Neil.
Brian.
Neil, stop. Brian's just poisoned the well. I've cleared the airwaves anyway. Go ahead, Brian.
As someone for anybody, something 500 meters away is not far enough away for it to prove to me that the Earth is a horizontal plane. Now, if I learn about celestial navigation and the dip correction, that's the part. That is the killer. That is the be all and end all, right? If I learn about that and about the corrections in the almanac and the details that the globe have to come up with to try and make it, the globe people come up with to try and make it fit, that proves to me that the Earth has a horizontal baseline. Just something 500 meters away from me is not good enough. So just elevation angle is not good enough. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you ignore John.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, that 500 yards or meters was measured flat. That's a matter of fact.
Yeah, and there's no flat surfaces on a sphere, so that's going to be hard.
Right, so your apologetics that it's not good enough because you can ignore and apologise for how little curve you're not accounting for. Yeah, that's not going to fly.
But that's what, listen, that little tiny bit of curvature between me and something 500 meters away on a globe will be so small.
There's not an angle.
But exactly, it's not an angled measurement then, so it doesn't matter how much you apologise for how not comporting to the factual angle off a flat plane you are measuring, 500 metres or 5 metres. Doesn't matter. You could say, if I measure it as an angle that's got a 5 centimetre length to the baseline is still matter of fact flat. Doesn't matter if you take it to the micron. I don't care. It cannot comport with a sphere. And saying, well, if I do it over a 5 centimetre distance, there's so minuscule amount of... No. The apologies for how little curve there is won't comport with the straight line, ever. Under any circumstances, at any scale, at any distance. It factually is a flat Earth measurement, always, including at 500 metres. It's not good enough because there's so little curve to apologise for, you say. Okay, yeah. I'm going to agree with you. Shit sandwich. But you are correct about dip correction. Suddenly, the example includes an expanse and a methodology because of why you'd be doing dip correction that automatically proves the entirety of Earth is flat. So you've raised the bar in terms of your standard. When I say after half a dozen shows, I'm suggesting that people on the periphery, someone who's new today and has watched in the future 6 or 7 shows, would hear this sort of discussion a couple of times to the point where they go, I get it now. But further to that point, they're not the person to go out and debate this subject, even though they've, like Neil saying, got a fundamental understanding of it at that point, and they do, let's pretend, understand dip correction because they've watched it. It's come up twice on 2 shows, and they really understood it. That person shouldn't be debating it. Not at all. No.
Well,
that's what I'm driving at.
It's not about debate, Nathan. It's not about debate, right? It's about for the person themselves, right? This is why when the ballers come up with the term local vertical and local horizontal, they're talking about that 500 meters that they're not adding curvature in. Now, they're taking away the curvature that should be there, right, in their own heads, right? But they're okay with that. And so would basically anyone be okay, especially if they don't know what size globe they're going to be on and all the rest of it. They have very limited knowledge. This is the person you're referring to. And all they have is an elevation angle. That's not good enough. That is not good enough for that person to be able to state, yep, Earth is a horizontal baseline. That is not good enough. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the definition.
Yeah. It's good enough for you, maybe.
It's part of the definition, though.
No. Factually, not my opinion. If you're going to say elevation, which is in reference to the surface of the Earth, and angle together, compounded, you need Earth to be flat to do it.
Yep, I agree. That's it. That's the end. You're saying it's not good enough. Now, I'm going to just agree with Brian. Yeah, you're saying that somebody could undermine that standard with waffle, maybe a bit of feast nonsense thrown in, maybe a couple of red herrings. Or if it's not even being a contested subject, just the individual assessing it on its own merits, they might say, no, in my belief, over 200 yards, there's so little curve. In other words, you're apologising for them in terms of how their mental processing might just decry this as a standard of proof. Okay? I can't undo somebody who's rolling down the hill towards anti-flat earthism. Yeah? Now, if you are accepting of what we actually measure, I don't know what to say. That is the only reasonable standard I can put on people. If that person turns around and goes, no, I fundamentally decry the basics and the premise of this angle measurement with respect to a horizontal baseline, because it's only over 500 meters, and therefore there's very little curve for me to apologize for, I can't help that person, right? But the measurement is flat. It will require Earth to be a horizontal plane of reference. That means we reference it. And that's it. I can't offer anything further to that person. If you're saying not good enough because of the quality of brainwashing, or in fact, you wouldn't even, I don't care what standard you give me, I have to agree, don't I? Because you're saying in the mind's eye of your numpty who wants to disbelieve this because he's steadfast in his belief about a globe, this might not be good enough. No, maybe it's not. I mean, it's factually accurate and true, and you have no ability to contest it. We are measuring Earth flat. So from that point of view, Brian, I can't really disagree with you. It's like, okay, you're saying we need to polish this up and raise the standards of it, but it is just part of the definition of the angle measurement that Earth's flat.
Well, there's a big difference between measuring and...
That's our point. You just made our point, Nathan.
Okay, but there's a big difference between measuring an elevation angle. Hey, Chocolate. There's a big difference between measuring an elevation angle in my kitchen, which is for the everyday person the same as measuring something elevation angle to something 500 meters away. Because as far as they're concerned, there'd be no. The Earth is huge, so you wouldn't have any curvature over that distance. You have to remember, these people. This is everybody, not an indictment of anyone of any type of person. This is everybody. Most people don't know how massive or not massive the globe is claimed to be, so they're not expected to see curvature because they never saw it. And they just go, well, it's really big, so I mean, not to worry. It's only 500 meters. Do you know what I mean? So that's my point. Just saying it's measured flat, or just saying elevation.
I get that. I get that. Okay, let me respond. So you're saying in response when not good enough, their mind's eye tells them that it's just so big, it's flat. Yeah, that's what they did tell us for about 7 years, Brian. Now, what we're turning around in 2024 and saying is, so our opponent is telling us that there's so little curve to apologize for, it's okay to measure Earth flat in this very small section. So it's got a few apologetics, it's got a few weasel words, and it's got a few disclaimers. But what's the fact of the matter in their disclaimer when it's not good enough? The Earth's being measured flat, that's the only concrete part of the statement. So big, it's okay to measure it flat, doesn't faze me in the slightest, because the only bit of actual declaration of measurement in their statement with apologies is the flat measurement bit, because that's what's actually happening. Now, it might be up to me in the half a dozen shows that newbie comes along to listen to point that out a few times.
Yes, and it's basically someone not understanding what a measurement is, and they're trying to equivocate between the geometric concept of horizontal and changing what level is, what experience. It is.
Yes, John.
They're just fundamentally not understanding what a measurement is. How are you? People don't know what the meaning of the words you use are. Is that your problem?
No, I agree with you, and that's the problem. This is something you're trying to pass on to people who are green as grass and don't know any different, and a lot of them don't really fully understand what a measurement of Earth is. You know, my point is that they're going to need more information, and they can't just get by on just it's measured flat, elevation angle. That is not enough for everyday person.
That's not
when you say
that's
it's
not our point,
enough.
though.
Brian, then Chocolate. John, then Chocolate.
Right. Our point is, to know it's flat, you just have to know what I just said. To argue it with someone else, you need more information because
I'm not talking about argument. I'm not talking about argument. I'm talking about
we are.
It's not argument.
Chocolate next. Just Chocolate. I want to read out one of the comments, and then Chocolate. Chocolate. Then I want to read out one of the comments, please.
Not just coming into the middle of this. What I'm hearing Brian's point is when he's saying it's not enough. I agree with him that from that perspective, it's not enough, right? Because we've heard them over the years be willing to give up a little bit of their curvature if their overall argument is that it's still curved. That's why they're willing to say it's locally flat, or we measure it flat, just right here, right? As long as the overall argument is, oh, it's still a ball, even though we've measured it flat locally, right? That's not enough for them to go the whole way. I think that I mean, am I wrong? Is that what Brian's
No, that's
point
absolutely
is?
spot on. But within that context, they've measured it flat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're okay with that. They'll give that up as long as the overall argument is that it's still a ball, but right here it's flat enough that we can measure it flat.
Oh yeah. So it's we measure it flat, but special pleading and belief, therefore still a globe, even though I understand locally or whatever weasel word I insert here, the actual measurement's flat. I mean, I could even go to the extent of saying it's inappropriate at that scale to measure it as a ball. Either way, measured flat, but still a ball. There's very little globe bit to apologise for. It's so small. The area we're measuring flat.
Yeah, but Nathan, you have people who are, planar surveyors, right, who constantly deal with a flat plane, right? Planar surveyors. They're dealing with Earth as mean sea level being a horizontal. That's what they do, and they work all the time, and they can work in pretty big distances, right? It's not all small, but they can work in pretty big distances. Now, they probably obviously they don't give it a second thought, but they know what a measurement is, and even for that person alone, you'd have to actually point it out to them that they're measuring the Earth to be a horizontal plane, or they're using, and they go, yeah, that's what we do. We presume it's in a certain area that the Earth is just flat. You know what I mean? It's not triggering with them either. The point being is that for the person, and that's someone with knowledge and knows what a measurement is, for the everyday person, they don't know any different. Just saying, my point is, it's not so cut and dry that they're just going to be able to say, oh, it's measure flat elevation angle, problem solved. It's not going to happen.
That's not what we do.
They need more information.
I know they need more. I agree.
Well,
my
that's my point.
My
That's
only
been my
point
point
here,
from the
I just want to
start
round
here.
it out, and I do want to read out this comment from TB. My only point is, yes, they need more. People are going to need a firm, solid grasp of the argument to even understand it, to comprehend that Earth is measured flat, so that they can go about their day and go about their business and know what's what. I'm just saying that to then move forward as an evangelist, I'm going to read out TB's comment. Okay, let me just read this out from one of the comments. It says, "You're right, Neil. You can ride off into the sunset, but if you go out and tell others and they throw heliocentric and globe concepts at you, it's necessary to know the arguments to win." I don't know about the first bit, but the
I
second
just demonstrated. I said you demonstrated it's flat. You go through all the celestial navigation. You demonstrated now that it's flat. I don't care what they throw at you. They lose.
Okay.
Well, I don't. It's like we're talking at cross purposes, and I don't understand why it's getting so mixed up. For you to know and you to communicate that knowledge to others are not the same thing. For you to get someone to accept something is something completely different than both of the concepts I just mentioned before. So it depends on what you're wanting to do with this information once you've accepted it.
Okay, John, let me ask you a question. Somebody demonstrates to you beyond the shadow of doubt that Earth is flat, and you're a heliocentrist. What are you going to say after that?
We get a burger? Want dinner?
What are you going to say? What about orbits? What are you going to say? But Earth is revolving around the sun. We're the third planet from the sun. Really? I just demonstrated to you that Earth is a flat plane. I knocked heliocentrism out of the freaking ballpark.
Anything that comes out of my mouth that will be against that will be ipso facto a fallacy, no matter what I say.
Thank you. That's my point. And the only reason I could do that is because I sat in flat Earth debate for 7 years.
Okay, well, what are you saying, Neil? We should just state it like maybe I could put it on a revolving loop. Earth's measured flat, elevation angle measurements, and then just have the definition of the horizontal plane the observer is standing on going over and over again in a loop, and then I can just retire, right? That's all anybody needs.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I just said I'm listening. I've been on 7 years, listening for 7 years. There's time invested. You have to invest time in everything, of course.
Okay, so now you're agreeing with this.
Yes, that's. My
Yeah.
God.
What was the point of the last 20 minutes of discussion? Oh yeah, Brian was involved.
No, but my point is, you could get a person and you could explain to them everything about how Earth is measured flat, and they don't need to know a damn thing about heliocentrism. What do they need to know?
Yeah, but what Neil is saying is you go and you demonstrate it with celestial navigation, and you go through the whole thing and you show them everything, you teach them all the things that you know about it, tip correction, everything else, proving it. That's fine.
Right.
Just say an elevation angle to something 500 meters away, that is not going to do it. I'm sorry. It's not going to do it.
Yeah, because
Yeah, but even
special
talking
plating
about.
fallacy.
Sorry, John. I was going to say to Neil, but even that doesn't mean anything, right? Like, it depends on the person that you're talking to and the information they're willing to take. I mean, there's probably ship captains out there right now, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Who are using the Earth as a flat plane to navigate right now, right? But in the back of their head or on the top of their mind, they still think they're on a globe, right? And there's nothing you can say to them that's going to convince them otherwise, even though literally they are doing it right now, right? So it doesn't, it depends on who you're talking to, man. Not everybody, this shit is not for everybody.
Yeah, well, if they don't accept it, it's on them, Chocolate. That's
So
the
who
bottom line.
cares? Just move on with your day. Why stress out because somebody else is not getting what you're getting?
I'm not. That's not how we started this conversation. What I'm saying is, it's like preaching and choosing. Some people want it, some people don't. You can't grab them by their neck and shake them. I just got that from Paula's comments. It's the same thing. You give the information you got out. If they accept it, they accept it. But they can't turn around to me and tell me I'm wrong and bring some heliocentric nonsense into it.
Yeah, they can.
Because they just destroyed
Yeah,
it.
Yeah, they can. Yeah, they
Yeah, they
can.
can. And what are you going to do after that? Just keep
Exactly.
repeating the same thing? What are you
Yeah,
going
but
to do?
they can't do it and win.
No. You're not. What are you doing?
You're not getting what we're putting down, Neil.
What
If
if
you're
they won in their own head?
yeah,
What
in
if
their head
you
they've won.
actually won with the facts, but they won in their own head? What are you going to do? You're just going to beat them up, and so they accept that you win? You're going to make them say uncle?
I walk away. I don't sit there and fight with
Yeah,
them.
you want to win,
You're
Neil.
That's the point.
Neil, you want to be an evangelist, and you want your position to be accepted by the opponent because it is the winning position. Now, that is not an unreasonable attitude, but it's not a reasonable world, and people you deal with are not reasonable. Therefore, you can present
but I'm not going to fight with them over it.
Well, then don't get on with your day. That's my point. That's why I'm trying to define it.
Right.
Okay, Neil, thanks. Just chill out a little bit, okay? Yeah, that's why I'm trying to explain to people that there are two paths you can take. If you want to be the evangelist, then you're going to need to understand and empathise with the argument coming from your opponent so you can take them through it with them appreciating that you understand what they've told you, so they can't just tell you you don't understand and walk away with the win. Now, in that circumstance, if you've taken the former road, which is you know it's flat, you're not going to care that you've not converted them. You care because you want them to understand it and be able to reconcile with it on the spot with you in front of them to the point where they can admit it and console with you or whatever it is they're going to do after the fact. Now, when they don't, you're like, but they should because I've got the winning argument. Yeah, it's not a reasonable world, Neil. But
That's not what I said. Use your twisting my words around.
That's not what Neil said.
That's what I'm
That's a
saying. What the
misrepresentation.
frick? Am I a communicator? Maybe I should just go to
Neil,
freak on
relax,
you.
I'm going to help you.
Holy
That's
shit.
not what Neil is saying. That's not what Neil said at all. What Neil said is, if Neil goes and demonstrates to someone that it's flat, then he has gone through the whole process, and it's up to that person then whether they accept it or don't accept it. He has demonstrated it. He doesn't need to do anything else. That's his point, and it's true.
Okay.
I mean,
from the
in this
beginning on
wonderful world of unicorns, that often happens to me. I just put it to people, and because I'm right, they accept it, and we move on with our day, and everything's hunky dory. I think it's
No,
perfectly
that's
reasonable.
not
You
it.
should
That's
accept
another
this.
misrepresentation of the situation.
Yeah, it is,
You're
isn't it?
misrepresenting it because it's a delicate
Yes.
issue for you. This
What?
is a delicate issue for you because you
What's a
have a
delicate-
belief in this.
It's not delicate.
What's
That's
delicate
so
for
silly. It's not delicate. It's poisoning the well.
me? He's having a laugh, I think, actually, John. No. The point is that if you haven't got an exemplary understanding of the opponent's position, then you're never going to be able to undermine it. That's how you win debates. You need to know their argument better than they do. That's it. Well, if you're trying to debate someone and convert the opinion of others around you or them personally, you're going to get rumpus by Neil who's triggered. That's the first thing you're going to learn how to cope dealing with when someone's talking straight through the top of you. Right? Ultimately, I'm just telling the audience that even though you're going to face things like constant rumpusing when you're trying to get a point across that's been learned over many periods of time, that it isn't necessarily in your advantage to go around trying to convert people and then getting all bent out of shape because they haven't been converted on the spot because you've got the winning argument and they still don't accept it.
Wow, that is a total misrepresentation. Total misrepresentation.
Yeah,
I'm surprised
that's not
you
what
Nathan.
Neil said at all. That's not at all. I don't think you're listening to what Neil's saying. That's totally not representation.
I've got my own agenda. I've got two roads that I'm pointing out to people. Once you understand the argument and understand how Earth's measured, you can just get on with your day. You know, good for you. If you're trying to convert others, then there's a higher standard that you need to attain to be able to do that. And even if you do attain that standard, there's a very good chance that even then, you've got to watch the show when we deal with fundies and go through the same thing 15 times with them. Even then, when you do know their arguments, can undermine them at a base level and show them how their arguments revolve around a flat Earth measurement, they still won't accept it, Neil. The world is not reasonable.
Nathan.
But
Nathan,
I'm still not
you're
getting
the
to make this bloody point, so I'm going to mute G+. We'll actually make it for the first time. But if you want to be a flat Earth evangelist, then you better go about learning this stuff to a really high standard.
I just gave it to you. I just demonstrated everything to you, Mr. Heliocentrist. What do you got to say about the Earth not being flat?
I don't want to involve myself in a role play when I've got a different agenda and I'm trying to explain to people that they don't need to necessarily listen to the next 2 years of arguments and go back through all the shows because they want to be able to convert next man.
Nathan, let me ask you something. You're saying someone trying to say.
I'm sorry, I wanted to jump. I wanted to jump in. I don't have too much time. I got to go. Elevation angle is all you need.
Yes,
that's it. Your appeal, Brian, to there's just little curvature. Define an elevation angle.
I don't have to. It's not the point. I'm talking about from the person.
My point.
Yeah, but you're talking about from a position of dealing with a debate. I'm talking about for the person themselves, the average everyday person. The average everyday person is not going to care about that.
I'm not talking about any person. This has nothing to do with
that's what I am talking about. That's what I'm talking about. So I think you have the wrong end of the stick here.
Subjectivity is what I mean.
Sorry?
Purely objective. This has nothing to do with subjectivity. All you need is an elevation, just elevation angle. It ends it.
Yeah, if you have more details with it, if you know what you're doing, you understand the situation.
Define an elevation angle.
Do you know why we started this?
Define it.
I know what it is.
You're wrong right now.
Define it. I'm not going to define it because you're missing the point of why this thing started.
No swearing.
Okay. Well, you can play your little game.
It's not a game. You don't understand where this came from. I don't know. Don't know if you're listening to this.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I don't want to go out this way. Right. So this is my stance. This could be the last official statement that I make. The elevation angle is all you need. Okay. So take care, brothers. Hang in there. Be cool. Right on.
I hope you're okay.
Well, thank you, Fonzie. But he is correct.
He wasn't Fonzie. He was, what's his name? In 48 Hours. Be cool. Right on. Reggie Hammond.
Nathan, the point that I'm trying to get across to you, and I've been trying to do it, is you say, you just know it's measured flat. How do you know that? without going through all the details and all the layering. How do you know that?
I didn't.
It's
I had to learn it all.
using-
I'd spend a
Angle.
significant amount of time getting to the understanding and grips of it. I didn't just hear the statement rattled off, and I didn't just go to the definition to understand it. Brian is absolutely correct in context with social status and social surroundings and psychological assessment all in tow, and the world that we really live in and the people that we actually encounter. Brian knows he's correct in a real context. Doesn't alter what QE said. Doesn't mean that
Right,
when you
but-
just define what an elevation angle is, that is literally all you need, because it is.
Right. But see, this is where it's getting mixed up, right? For you to know, all you need is the elevation angle. You will know because you know it. All things put to you to disagree with you will be fallacious, because
My point.
then what you do know isn't what you know. Hold on, now, God, be quiet, Neil. I'm not finished. But then that's just one level. I ain't even going to call it a level. That's just your personal understanding. Now, if you're going to go and communicate that with someone else, right, you're going to have to make sure that they understand the words you're using. Maybe even a Socratic method. This is assuming this person has no knowledge of heliocentrism or the Earth. And you can communicate that information to them. But we're going even further than that, because we're going to someone who has been brainwashed with fallacious arguments. If we're going to be an evangelist,
Right.
that's why
And an
you would be dealing with it so
Oh,
big.
he's
and
finally getting
wide.
to, with clear air,
hold on.
reiterate my point, and
Sorry,
Neil's
Johnny was
rumpusing bloody
done.
him now. I had to make 4 attempts to make this point, John, and everyone got rumpus by Neil. Try again. Hopefully Neil can keep his trap shut this time. It's about the 5th or 6th attempt between you and I to make this bloody point.
The point is, right, is what are you trying to do? Right? If you just want to know, that's all you need. You just need to know what an elevation angle is. It ends the concept that it could be spherical to begin with. At its root, it's done.
Are you done now?
But
Are you done now? Can I go?
No, because he's going to juxtapose it with the
No.
other standard, the other path, the path of evangelicism, or whatever the word is, to describe you going out, praise be to flat earth, trying to convert people with argumentation, aka debate. There's a very, very different standard to an appreciation of an elevation angle measurement by definition within the Socratic method. For a reasonable person that doesn't just defy what bloody words mean, it proves we're measuring Earth flat. That's all you need. It undermines any premise of it being spherical. It can't be. That is literally all you need. Does that person who understands that, after us reiterating it 7 times on this show alone, have the ability to go out and debate how Earth is flat to a globe believer who has a reasonable understanding of orbits? Absolutely not. That's a different standard. That's what I'm now segueing over to John, so hopefully he'll be tolerated, because I'll just be accused of waffling on about it too much, or something similar, if I'm not careful. Go ahead, John. That's where you were going, and I hope I hope it was along that lines, otherwise I'll look like a right dick.
right. But if you are wanting to go to people who are already indoctrinated with fallacious logic, you are going to need to understand how to unpick those fallacies. Not that you don't know they're going to be fallacious when they argue against you, because you already know. Ipso facto must be a fallacy, but if you can't point that out to them, you're never going to convert them, evangelist.
Finally.
Nobody wants to role play, though, right? I gave you the opportunity, and nobody did. Once you demonstrate it, it does not matter. Whoever comes, I don't care if a guy comes down the block, you take him through the process and have demonstrated that Earth is flat. I don't care what he says. You're just going to keep coming back to what are you talking about?
Okay,
I
yes.
just demonstrated that Earth is flat.
Okay, perfect. Let's just break that down. Upon demonstrating to a third party that Earth is measured flat, you, as the individual, don't care that he's throwing back something in contradiction, because it won't be true. You were right all along. Yes, Neil, that's absolutely right. Fulfilling standard number 1, you can go in peace with your understanding that Earth is flat based on the measurements. Okay, but have you achieved anything other than a little row with someone who disagreed with you at that stage? No, you didn't achieve anything. You just ruined your day and his slightly. That's it. He went in peace knowing it was a still talking. Neil's going to ruin it for the 8th time. He's going to go in peace knowing that it's a ball and he's dealt with some numpty you didn't understand because you didn't have anything to undo his fallacies with, as John put it. Yeah? Now, if your righteous endeavour is to be the evangelist for flat Earth, then you better have your wits about you and know all of his fallacies so you can unpick them, and that means a good understanding of the heliocentric understanding that he thinks he's got to prove his ball so that you can eventually link it back to a flat Earth measurement that you told him in the first place. And satisfy There's the 8th attempt out the window. There's the 8th attempt triggered Neil, because obviously it's when I take a breath that Neil decides to chant straight through the middle of the 9th attempt of the example. And no matter how much I keep talking, Neil's going to ruin the show with his non-stop ranting through the top of an example that's been attempted to be made 9 times. Thanks, Neil. Wonderful having you here. 9 attempts, Neil, to make the exact same bloody example. You better be good at understanding the arguments and how they are positioned by our opponents if you're going to convert them, or have the slightest opportunity to convert them, or even leave them with the slightest of doubt that they might be wrong. And if you just know it's flat to your own satisfaction, you're not going to be in a position to do that. You need to listen for a long period of time to all the arguments and understand them inside out and back to front, if you're going to be an evangelist. I don't suggest anybody should be that. Just go in peace. You know it's measured flat. Wonder at the wonders of the world that you now don't know. Take solace and joy in those things. What's that? You don't know why the sky is blue? How joyous. You might be the one to find out. Why are you worried about what bloody next man thinks? Oh, right, and you're still right when he disagrees with you. Yeah, you are. Why were you arguing with him in the first place if you know you're right anyway? Why are you just an antagonist? But if you're going to be that antagonist, be right and prove it. With every step of every argument that they could throw at you. That takes a lot of discipline. That's all I'm trying to communicate to my audience. That's it. Don't be that flat earth dickhead that doesn't know your stuff. You'll just end up looking like a numpty. You don't want to be that guy. Not along. Respect people's beliefs when you know that's what they are. Just go, okay, yeah, you believe you're on a sphere. Okay, cool. Oh. And then move on with your day, knowing better. Because you do. You don't have to challenge them. You don't have to be the evangelist. You don't have to do that.
I used to leave my coworkers with just anybody just let me know when you guys get an actual measurement of curvature. This was like years ago, right? Now, if they don't like it, they'll leave you alone. But if you have left a little bit of doubt in them with your argumentation, trust and believe they will seek you out. They will find you. They will bring it up. I've had it happen. People who have walked away from me, like, I don't even want to talk about this. And then days later, so that thing we were talking about, right? That's going to be some people. It's not going to be everybody. You know what I mean?
Yes, it's
Do you
their
know why
pain.
that is, chocolate?
It's their pain, not yours.
Exactly, because they know something. They don't realize they know it, but it's like a splinter in their mind.
Yes.
I love going to the Matrix with analogies on this. It is. It's a splinter.
And what makes it even, yeah, you're right. And what makes it even worse for them is when you come in with the attitude of, yeah, I know what I'm talking about. You don't, but we can leave it alone and just talk about work or talk about something else if you don't want, because I'm not here to make you emotional about what you believe. I'm just here to talk about facts, things that you can measure, right? And trust and believe they'll leave you alone if that's not their cup of tea.
And there's the irony. To be able to be in that position, you only are there because of you elevating yourself to understand their arguments so that you can position them as beliefs back at them in a nonchalant way. You've got to kind of have that advanced understanding to hand wave their belief in the way that Chocolate's done. He can only do that because of his exemplary understanding of the debate and the process and everything that we've been through. So therefore, he's sitting pretty. He can not care about it, if you know what I mean. And when someone challenges him, he can hand wave it as their belief, because it is. But he's got to know that balls to bones, right? And know that this is going to neg them, not him. He's confident, chocolate that is, in his position, doesn't need any more affirmation. For them, it's a splinter in their mind. It's going to nag at them from the moment they part company. And chocolate knows that too. But he's not going to get all that from just reading the definition of an elevation angle, is he? Yeah? So, what is it? The alternative, if you're just that guy who knows that an elevation angle measurement proves Earth's flat and cannot be anything else, and you get into a debate with Next Man, there's a good chance that he'll challenge you with an orbital motion that you don't know how to overcome, and you'll part ways annoyed with each other because you haven't converted him, but you still know. It's like, well, why were you arguing with him? You could have just gone about your business. You didn't have to challenge his belief. Shouldn't you have respect for other people's beliefs? Now, if you enter into a debate with that person and you are, for whatever reason, you feel righteous in your endeavour to put this person straight, they're a loved one, and it's worth the effort, and you want them to know what you know out of love and respect for them rather than wanting to get one over because you're a dick, then you're going to gently take the time to try and get them to understand that which is true. There's a very different methodology in that. And again, you'll probably fail if you just know the definition of an elevation angle, even if your heart's in the right place. So there's two different standards. That's it. That's the only thing I was trying to get across to Neil. Every time I got to the but, there's a second road of conversion as an evangelist, he'd rumpus me and go, no, that's all we need. It's all we need. It's all we need. That's the point that you've proven the point. Once you've proven it, isn't that it? Oh, if that was true, we wouldn't be here, would we? We're still here. Yeah, we've still got daily shows. Is the Western world converted? It would spread like wildfire if that was the truth. It's not. We're not in a reasonable world. Yeah? So to a certain degree, you've got to look out for number one, keep your own sanity. Once you know what you know, respect other people's beliefs and go about your business. Any last remarks before ask everyone to stay tuned for the after show?
I really don't know what was supposedly accomplished here. I don't get it.
We're trying to
Like
deter.
You're saying, Nathan, to just take people as measured flat and send them on their way. That's basically what you've been saying. That's not good enough. And saying elevation angle to them is not good enough. These people don't know what the world is. They believe it's a globe. Just doing that much is not enough. You have to actually be able to show them and go through all the details and everything else. And you need to have more than just a 500-meter distance you need to go through celestial navigation with elevation angles to get and go through all the process with dip correction and everything to actually show them. Then they can go forward, but they can't argue it because they only have one piece. They can't argue positions because they don't have enough information to argue positions, as in against the globe or will come up with all kinds of nonsense.
You didn't listen.
Just that much. They need more than just elevation angle because that's not enough for the everyday person.
Right. As an evangelist in a society that has already been brainwashed, yes. But that's not what we've been saying.
Yeah.
But
okay, before you get back into the discussion, you can start back up in the after show, right?
Say
because
that.
I agree.
I've been misrepresented here.
I'm agreeing with you.
There's no point in me bringing up things because there's no point in me bringing up a subject if I'm just going to get misrepresented.
But I agree with you. People need more, and I'm about to agree with you. Yes, I absolutely agree with Brian. The standard's too low, and therefore to attain a higher standard with everyday folk who are in the position of indoctrination, they need more. And if you're that guy, you can get it right here by subscribing and hitting the like button, sharing, and you can pass on that wonderful information that we deliver daily to everybody else. So hit the subscribe button if you haven't done so already. However, with that, I'm going to say, first and foremost, a massive thank you to the live Discord and G Plus panels for making this live show possible. But stay tuned if you are watching on an after show, because there will be one after the outro for the live audience. So stay tuned if you are watching on an after show. If you are watching live, though, this is where we bid you farewell. So, another massive thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, joined as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, gifted out memberships, hit me up on Ko-Fi, all that good stuff. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on an after show. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.